Oh my God, what an intro. It's amazing. I mean, so yes, I'm very happy to be here today, especially because I'm speaking with a set of wonderful and amazing ladies. And for me, right, I would say that I would say investment and investing, I found my way into it, and it wasn't something when I first started, I thought I was going to work in an oil company, right? And all, but all of a sudden I was just, I don't know, I found my way into investment through a recommendation. And so before we, go into investing and talking about investment, in today's economy, like Mrs. Lydia has already said, it is like inflation, there's a lot of job uncertainty, there are lifestyle changes, so diversification is very necessary. If you notice, wealthy people don't just rely on only one source. They've built a system that even when they sleep, just like what she just described about Olu, even when they sleep, their money is working for them. And I want all of us to understand this, because I think the reason I'm very passionate about this is because I am not one of those people that do not practice what I preach. I am a practitioner, let me put it that way. And the market generally, investment has completely transformed my life. And it's funny because when I started my career, even in finance, I didn't get it. I didn't. I was a spender, and because I like to enjoy myself generally, I was somebody who just, once I have that money, I must spend it. Well, all of a sudden, everything just dawned on me when something happened. I had a defining moment where I was like, you know what? Nah. If you sit down with men, right, that is one thing I love about them. They are talking about money. They're enjoying themselves, but they're talking about how to build money, how to grow wealth, how to do businesses. I'm like, well, women, that's what we should do. I had an engagement, during salary period. And it was, one is a client invited me, and then, and it was just in the midst of guys, and we're having conversations, and all of a sudden the guys just turned and said, "You're so intelligent. I can do business with you." I'm like, yes. That's how I want every lady to be. You should be able to, even the male folks should be able to see us as people that we can do business together. We're talking about money, Let's not be too emotional in our engagements. Let's talk about how we can build wealth. Now, there are different types of income streams, right? There is the active income, which is what you earn by working. Basically, your salary, your freelance, your consulting. There's also the passive income, which is which earning that comes from like a minimal ongoing effort, like investment, royalties, rentals, and all. There's portfolio income as well, which is returns from your assets. I know a lot of people have businesses, and you might think that once you make, you should use that. Nah, that's kind of like your margin. It is the return on your profit that you should enjoy. So why is this very important? It's important to build different streams of income. But you first need to start with what you are passionate about. There are people who have, started a small chops business and they've made money, And I was looking at, there was this, guys, sorry, I like to use very practical example because it's very important. There's this place, I'm sure we all know it, it's called Nomad. These people, they make one of the best shawarmas. They have in Ikeja, they have in Lekki. I saw them, I think it was CK or what, I featured them on CNN. Yes, and I'm like, from what somebody is passionate about. Do you know how, I'm sure we all know iFitness. One of the directors was telling me then that was one of the best investment decisions he made. Somebody came up with something. He came up with something, an idea. Why don't we create a chain? Please, can we all mute our mics? Can you hear some background noise? Okay. So he came up with an idea of having a fitness, and look at the structure. They're not cheating. You pay for your membership. There's a Gym Master app. The gym, you even pay, apart from even paying for the gym, you pay for membership. Things you build well from what you are passionate about, number one. Then you begin to structure. How do you now make money from all this? Now you begin to make, there's what they call reinvestment, reinvest your earnings. Once you make money from that earnings, that's when you start growing, you start enjoying, that money. And there, I'm going to read, I like using that example because it was one of my MDs, because she writes a lot of articles, and so she writes them on LinkedIn, our MD CEO of our asset management, Mrs. Ojiri. And I just like reading her write-ups. And she said something. She said that, that if she could give herself an advice, 20 years old self, these are the things she would do. Number one, start earlier than you think. I always do a mental picture in my head and say, if I'm saving 100,000 now, what is it going to be in the next 1 year? And I'm like, okay, 1.2. And then I'm going to put it in money market. There's a power, because I call money market the miracle of compounding effects. That's exactly what I call it. We don't know that the little steps and the little actions that we are taking is what is going to help us in building wealth. Whilst for some people, wealth is generated, like they get a big contract. They have one massive contract and they make money. Some other people, wealth is generated over time by consistent habits. I liken it to my friend who bought a property. And I asked him, I'm like, okay, so how did you buy this property? And he said that when he started his career for the past 10 years, that he was saving $100. He increased it to $200 every single month. And as at then, remember that dollar was not this. Then he said dollar was about 100, got to 300, 700. He kept the same principle until when he decided after 10 years to convert that money into Naira. And he was able to buy a property on the island. Not the properties are not as high, and now he's a landlord. And those little habits, it doesn't matter if you're saving 50,000, it doesn't matter if you're earning something. Savings should be part of your expense. That's the truth. And I apply these principles as well. Savings should be part of your expense. And my boss said something. She said, don't confuse income with wealth. For a long time, I focused on earning more, promotions, bonuses, bigger roles, but income creates comfort while investment creates independence. I think my question would be, if you're laid off of your job, I thought about this because I've seen people who I knew that they woke up and then they laid them off their job and they got stranded. People say keep 6 months emergency. I say keep 2 years emergency. If you're laid off, can you rest for 1 year? Okay, do you have what it takes to manage your expenses for 1 year? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves. Very important questions that we need to ask ourselves. And why is this important? Someone said that the next generation of wealth will not belong to the loudest spenders. It will belong to those who quietly accumulate ownership. An investor bought into Uber. He invested, he's an angel investor, $5,000 in Uber. When Uber was listed, and now the value of his investment has suddenly become over $23 million. What are we saying? The power of long-term investing, the power of growing your wealth, very important. I want us to get the big picture. Whatever you're doing now, even the stock market, I definitely am going to, come into the stock market conversation, but we need to remember that nothing is a get-rich-quick scheme. Everything is basically the future value. I say it all the time because someone said to me one time, he's a major stock investor, and I said to him that, what's your strategy? He says, anytime I invest in stocks, I always invest in the future value of what that stock price is going to be in the next 3 years. I had one of my uncle then, I think that was like 5 years ago. He bought NACO, which is an aviation company. He bought that NACO, I think it was about 900,000 naira. He just did this sparingly. It wasn't really, and we even forgot it. Coming back this year, we checked. The value of that money is about 36 million naira. Because NACO was 500, now NACO is 200. Do your math. It's about, if I got to 250, and they gave bonus. Why are we saying this? We have future goals. We have kids. I always tell myself that I am saving for my child's Harvard University. I don't want anybody to stress me. Any money I'm putting now, I'm putting this one for this, I'm putting it for that. And I'm not saying put it in only one asset class. These things are very, very, very important. There's a building wealth pyramid, which obviously you have your emergency savings. You need to have fixed income instruments. The one, because stock market is a bit volatile, right? It goes up, it goes down, it goes up. You must have a goal. And this is why, what type of investor are you? You must have an objective. What is my objective? What's the reason why? Am I saving for my kids? Am I trying to buy a car? Am I trying to buy a property? Once you have a goal, like, do I want to go to an MBA, right? Like, don't pay for my Ivy League school. People now, what people do a lot is they have a goal now. They don't say, you must have a vision for yourself. I have a vision where I'll see myself in the. So I'm saying you must definitely have an objective to why you are saving. You must have, I talked about the time horizon and your risk tolerance. I don't like the fact that most people always feel like women are too risk averse. If a guy wants to do a deal, it's like, I can't, I'm like, nah, we're not. We need to break tough skin. People lose money. If you watch, there's this series, What's Day in the Life of a CEO, things can never be on a straight line. Life is an ECG, it goes up, goes down, There are times when even on Ted was talking about the history of, there was a time he lost everything. Like if you go and watch all these stories, and so it's important for us to understand this thing. Sometimes I binge watch on people. I just go and look at who are the greatest women in the world. I watch their stories, I watch their interviews. There was one I was even watching then, and he was talking about this Apple. Then one of the major investors back in the 90s, invested, I think, $800. And it was him, Steve Jobs, Tim Cook. And then I think after 12 days, he sold because he was afraid of the risk into investing. And guess what? The $800 would have been worth billions now. And I was watching when Tim Cook was laughing at him on CNN, and he was like, so this is, why am I saying this? I'm saying that looking at the bigger picture, this happened even with Seplat. If you read the book from Austin Overo, he said the same thing. When they first started, he was looking for investors. When they made their first 100%, they took the money. Look at what Seplat is worth now. So we must think long term. And there are several ways to make money in the stock market. So as they had already introduced, we are one of the leading dealing members of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We're registered by the Securities and Exchange Commission. I'm going to talk about stocks, and then I'll also briefly talk about our asset management, the mutual funds products, and then just different instruments, and then we'll close. And we are licensed as a broker dealer. What that essentially means is that we help you to buy shares. We don't let you work in silos. A lot of people say they don't know what to do, but if you engage any brokerage firm, it is their responsibility to guide you through the markets. We have research analysts that crunch numbers of companies and tell you why it's very important and why you should buy certain stocks. And we're going to demystify all that while we're here. Now, if you go to the annual returns of the market, if you notice, let's go. Yes, you can see that while people are sleeping, people are cashing out though. People are cashing out from the market. Last year, and there are a lot of foreign investors that come into our Nigerian market. Last year, the Nigerian Stock Exchange was one of the best performing markets. The NGX ASI returned 51.9%. You can imagine, where has it been heard of that a stock market will return such index? That basically means that some stocks were doing about 100%. Some stocks, I'll show you some examples of some of these companies and all. And you see, even for the trajectory, that stocks remain one of the best performing asset class. Now, there are different asset classes where you can invest your money. So basically, simply in a nutshell, is products, different products. Stock is an asset class. There's the fixed income, the treasury bills, that one you're sure of your capital, right? There's also the money market. There's even dollar. There are different asset class. And why is it spread? In order for us to mitigate our risk, you spread your money across different asset class. Because sometimes, to be fair, when one asset class is not doing so well, another one will be doing fantastic. You can imagine people who invested in dollars a long time ago and never touched it when dollars was 120, 150, and they kept investing. Dollars got to 600, 500. They kept investing. Dollars is 15. You see why it's always good to put your money in different asset class. It helps you to maximize your returns in the market. Because even the money markets, I also see mutual funds, right? Sorry, mutual funds, which is money market, as I call it emergency as well, because you can easily liquidate. But there are different products, which I'll talk about under that money market. But it's very important. See, the NGX has delivered mostly double digits across the period. In 2045, when you hear an index even doing up to 30, that means that stock market is performing very, very well. In spite of inflation, volatility, of devaluation of our currency, you will see that the market has even given people very good returns. Now, what are the things you should consider when you're investing? There are certain factors you consider. Number one, if you want to pay your rent, like I remember my MD also saying the same thing, that then she was not benefiting from the stock market because every time she had a project, she'd be like, she was timing the market. You can't time the market like that. There are ways to time the market. And she was saying, I need to put money for this. And so when it gets to that dead time, because the market hasn't yielded that return, she will sell off. So please, when you have an objective, if you have a short-term goal, you put it in money market. You can put it in treasury bills, a shorter tenure. It's not stock market. Stock market is more long-term, more patient capital inclined, but very rewarding at the end of the day. Your risk tolerance. They say the higher the risk, the higher the reward. For me, I would say, let's say example, you have 100,000. I would always advise someone coming into the market, why don't you put 80,000 in fixed income and put 20,000 in equities? My appetite is different. I'm not going to use that strategy because obviously I've been in the market, but it's always important to spread your risk. That way, even if it goes up and down, it's not necessarily affecting you that much because you already know that long term, and as we go further, there are certain key metrics to why, you should invest in certain stocks and the benefit of it. Now, what is stocks? Stock is just basically a piece of ownership in a company, just a small piece of ownership. When you buy stocks, you're essentially buying a small piece of the company. Now, there is what they call the Nigerian Exchange Group, which is the stock exchange. That is where all the shares, all the shares are decided to go public. I can be a company now, and I'm like, you know what? I want to list some of my shares to investors. I want to sell some part of my companies. Now, the stock exchange, where those shares are traded, sold, purchased, it's like going to the market. When you want to buy foodstuffs, most people go to the supermarket, right? Maybe you want to buy something. Food. If you want to exercise, most people go to the gym, right? And that's the same thing. If you want to buy into a company's shares, there's a market for it, which is the Nigerian Exchange Group, formerly known as the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That is where over 160 companies are listed, right? What is even 60? They're even getting to 160 Most of them now are like, I think maybe 170 companies and different sectors. Some of these companies, and so I'm just going to say, example in the market, there's the banks. If you're looking to buy into a bank share, there's a bank. There's so many companies that are listed. Access Bank is listed. ETI is listed. Fidelity is listed. GTCO is listed. GTCO is currently about 140. I remember. Okay, so I think what is happening is, I think when you mute everybody as well. So, can you hear me now? I just noticed I was muted.
Loud and clear.
Okay.
There was a glitch at a point, or loud and clear. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I think somebody's muting everyone and then I get muted. I have to pay attention to that. So in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, because we're breaking these things down, like I had earlier explained, it's a market where you go and buy into companies that you think you like. These are publicly listed companies that you think you like. And for banks, I just want to give different sectors and the companies that there are, because I feel like there's a lot of hype for Dangote refinery. And one thing I've noticed about IPOs is you should buy into it, but don't put all your money in an IPO. They're why you're investing is to grow your money. So there are many companies. Bear in mind that when you buy an IPO, it's still going to take a while before they credit it. So IPOs are good, but IPOs are not the only thing to buy. And sometimes when IPOs are overly hyped, the prices go up. So for me, I believe in buying IPO, buying rights, buying public offers, especially when the companies are good. Look at all the public offers that came out 2 years ago. Fidelity Bank at 9 naira, currently 22. Zenith Bank and GTCO was about 30 something naira. We'll see all that. All of them have doubled in terms of value, right? So IPOs are good, but that's not the only thing that you should buy in the market. So in the banks, we have the likes of GTCO, we have Jaiye, Stanbic, Sterling, UBA, Wema. These are all in the stock exchange. There are also different sectors. The industrial sectors, some of the companies we know WAPCO, Lafarge. There's Meya, there's Dangote Cement, there's Boa Cement, there's Better Glass. There's so many companies. Consumer goods, there's Boa Food, there's Cadbury, there's Dangote Sugar, there's Honey Flour, International Breweries, Nigerian Breweries, Vitafoam. All these companies are listed. Oil and gas, we can see what happened even with Seplat. When Seplat acquired ExxonMobil, I remember Seplat being about 400 naira. Even people that bought it at 1,000 naira, currently, the value of their money. I mean, people that put 1 million, maybe like 5 years ago, and bought Seplat. Seplat is 12,000 naira now. 12,000. So that's it. Why are these things? You can see even for agriculture, do we want to talk about Okomo and Presco? I mean, these companies have done so well in their fundamentals. Last 2 years ago, Presco doubled its earning. PBT did about 100 billion naira in terms of earnings. And so Presco went from even 800 currently to about 2-3. There's agricultural sector. And why am I explaining this? Because I want everyone to understand the market. There are different sectors to invest in that resonates with you. There's insurance. There's custodian, there's NAME, there's mutual benefit, there's Lasaco, there's Veritas Capital. There are other financial, even our company. Our company is one of, in fact, the first listed financial institution, United Capital, and the shareholders benefited. We gave a bonus 2 for 1. Technically, everyone that had, in fact, people made so much money even from buying United Capital shares. And you can see even our results. This year, we did about 60% returns on our earnings. We increased. As I speak now, fitting about 130. There's me and Baker. There's so many stocks, right, in the market. There's a service sector that has Transcorp, and there's Carberton, there's a Keja Hotel, there's NACO. This same NACO decided to give bonus this year. All these are all sectors that are trading in the market. There are companies that are listed in the market. Why are all this important? It's very important to understand that the market is also very highly regulated, right? The market has actually done significantly well, very, very well. Now, do you know what I say about the stock market? The stock market allows ordinary people like me to become part of owners of extraordinary businesses, right? Instead of only buying products directly from the company, like Nestle, the water you drink. Somebody says, my client tells me that he buys into all the companies he sees with his eyes. That he will buy into the banks because he knows the banks. He goes into the banks, so he's interested. He says, I'll buy into Nestle, I'll buy Cadbury, I'll buy USC. Last year, there was USC. I don't know if we saw it in the news. USC merged. I think they acquired Chi. People that have Chivita. I remember USC at 30 something, got into 40, got to 19 naira. When their Q1 result came out, USC went from 19 naira. I'm talking about within the space of 3 months. It went from 19 naira to 200 naira. It has even come down now. And you see, I still believe in long term. I know that the market gives return within 3 months, but you cannot time this market, right? And that's the truth. So I'm going to my slide. Just please, can we move? I want to show everybody something. Yeah, correct. Okay, we go before then. So one of the basic rules here, unlike mutual funds, in equity market, the buyer directly buys shares of the company. You can buy with the help of the broker. But the way the exchange is now, once you open an account, you have access to trading by yourself. There's a guide. We have an app where you can trade by yourself. We give you stock recommendations. Once you open an account, you put into our mailing list. You'll be seeing market news. You will see stock recommendations where the research team will tell you to buy. You can buy into this. We feel like within a medium to long term, is to do a 40%. That's how you work. We don't just allow you and say, oh, just buy. And then you have us. Victoria is an amazing advisor. We have me who can always guide people in, what to buy. And also, what is the principle? They say one of the principles of the market is that you buy low and you sell high. But for me, I say it's also very relative. Anytime I buy a stock, I don't buy for now. So if I'm trying to buy to what I think it will be next year, I take my position when I've already seen the results for Q1. I somehow have an idea, the direction of where the company is going to. And that's when I start buying. Now, you can grow your wealth from dividends. How do you grow funds with stocks? To shock you, some companies, by virtue of the fact, like GTCO paid 11 naira 75 kobo for owning. So it was depending on how much you bought it. Some people that carried it last year at 40, they're already getting 20%. So dividend is when the company makes money, right? They share profit to shareholders, people who own their shares, right? And so they share profit to shareholders. Do you know, I have a couple of people that even on Zenith Bank, on only dividends, not even the fact that the stock has increased though, just on dividends, they get like 5 million because they've been buying these shares since. They've been buying it. Some of them say, look, dividend helps me to pay my children's school fees. I don't even joke with my dividend stocks because I like enjoyment and I want to enjoy myself. I don't believe that I should suffer, save, and not still make out time. So how do I enjoy myself? I enjoy myself too for my dividends. I have invested, my capital has appreciated, and they're still sharing profits. Wow. When the profit comes, some people reinvest their dividends, which is fine. Everybody has a different strategy. So I'll do a pretty maths because we are breaking down this thing. Let's say last year you had put in, I just want to give an example. 2 million naira. Let's do the calculation together. 2 million naira, and you bought a bank. Let's say you bought Zenith Bank, and Zenith Bank was about 40 naira. Give and take when you add charges. Let's say you bought it for 42 naira. So can someone give me the figure? Divide your 2 million by 42 naira. Someone should give me the figure on what the unit is actually. The unit, please. I want us to have an interactive class, please. Interactive session.
Sorry, what's the question again?
So you invested 2 million naira in Zenith Bank, and I'm adding charges, and the shares was trading for correct. Yeah, somebody has given the answer. So the share was trading for 42. So that means you own 47,619 units of Zenith Bank, right? Now let's do the math. Now Zenith Bank is 130. Can somebody calculate that 2 million naira that you bought at 42 naira? Can somebody, and this was last year, we're talking about last year. Can somebody calculate 47,619, what the value of each day? As Zenith Bank is 131. Somebody help me, please.
6 million.
Somebody help me, please.
6,238,095 kobo.
Can you imagine the decision you made for last year just to buy Zenith Bank, and you put 2 million? The value of your 2 million is worth 6 million naira now. This is what is actually happening. It's what's happening in the market based on investment. Why? The company has. Stocks don't just wake up and rise. If a company is doing well, investors see value, they keep buying. If your result is good, they see value. If you're paying good dividends, now that's 6 million, that's side. Let's do the math again. 47,619. They paid a dividend of 8 naira 75 kobo this year. 47,619 multiplied by 8 naira. Dividends is profit sharing from the company. Whenever they make money, let's say they make 50 billion, they can decide to say, you know what, we're going to give 10 billion to investors because every company has their dividend payout ratios. They give 10 billion to say, you know what, let's give this to shareholders. That's our profit sharing. So can someone give me the figure? If you have 47,619, and bear in mind that this bank pay dividend, UBA did not pay, some companies, but can someone please give me the figure of what you're getting in dividends? Okay, I need someone to give me. Remember, you have 47,619 Then they paid a dividend of 8 naira 75 kobo. So you're going to multiply the unit by the amount they paid per share. They paid per unit of share. The Zenith Bank paid this April 8 naira 75 kobo. So if you multiply it, let me not waste so much time. That's essentially about 400,000. By the time you remove tax, let's just say 390. Yeah, it's about, yeah. So this is you also realizing that your capital has appreciated to 6 million. You're still getting dividend of about 400. And these companies pay dividend twice a year. Some companies, but of course, the interim dividend is always smaller. So imagine if even this 400,000 can pay for like feeding, can pay for foodstuffs. Like, this is what I call a passive income. This is not just necessarily the return from your investment. The return from your investment. I remember speaking once. A director was telling me, Dabi, I've been building my stock portfolio for the past 15 years. And on dividends, I see close to 100 million. Of course, Rome was not built in a day. And he says, yeah, that figure is correct. Thank you very much, Godwin. And he said that even if he wants to fly business class 3 times a year, companies will even give bonus. Like what United Capital did for everyone I had, they gave me extra 2. So increasing my value in shares, which means when they pay dividends, I still have more units, more dividends, and I'm still earning. And a lot of people don't understand this. Sometimes when you see people enjoying their lives, you don't know that these people have built wealth over time. They built structures, things that help them earn. And some things I decide to buy, I don't buy them actually for my salary. And that's why every money I get, I'm like, I'm going to save 50% of my salary. If you give me bonus, I'm putting it in money market, I'm putting it in stock because I want to enjoy the return on this investment. There is a fund even in the stock market. What the fund basically does is an infrastructure fund. They pay dividends every 3 months, and the dividend yield is very good on those stocks. So now you can make money from both capital appreciation and also capital gain, which is capital appreciation. So profit you make when you sell a stock. If you don't have need for it, don't sell it, right? Build on it, especially if it's a good company, and you make money from dividends. Let's go to the next slide. I just want to show an example. Please, how many more minutes do I have? Please, the next slide, please. Can someone move the next slide where it shows snapshots of some companies' performance, please? Thank you. So, we do this on a yearly basis because, like we always say, stock market is not just for the wealthy; it's for everybody. Now, this is just a simulation of some companies, not all, some companies for 2025, how they performed. If you invested 100,000, so we like to use 100,000 as the value of the investment. Wema Bank, as at 1st of January, Wema Bank was 9 naira 10 kobo. As at the end of December, Wema Bank is 20 naira 40 kobo. So essentially, you had made a return of over 124%. That's 124,000 on top of the 100,000, right? As we speak now, Wema Bank is 33 naira. So you can see that as the company is growing and they're doing well and they have good structure and their revenue, they have consistent revenue growth, investors are usually interested. Now, if you see Better Glass is 64 naira, and then at the end of December, it got to 370. So for even having 100,000, you made almost 470,000. Same thing if you look at NACO, if you look at Mutual Benefit was 60 kobo, got to 3 naira currently. So why are we sharing this? To realize that everybody can start from somewhere when it comes to stock, right? And there are certain factors. I don't want to waste so much time so that we can have questions. I want to also talk about other instruments. In the market, mitigating your risk is concentration risk. This is why I took my time to explain the different sector. Don't just focus on only one sector. That's like us in investing. We need to diversify because you never can tell. CBN can come up with one policy and say, you know what, all banks, you're not allowed to pay dividend this year, and all your money, this price can drop. Or I remember one time there was a reconstruction in the insurance sector. So the value of most people's shares in the insurance sector went down. So it's always better to diversify, look at different sectors. Which company is doing well in different sectors? Which company do I think still has a growth potential? And invest in those companies, right? We also have what they call the UC loan. Basically, is our UC invest. Okay, yeah, let me just, this I've already talked about, why it's important to invest in the stock market. You get dividend income, which is very good. Long-term growth. So stock market has typically shown that it beats inflation. If you look at what inflation numbers are now and what the stock market has performed, I think the stock market year today should have done about, either 30 or about 30 something percent. I'll check that number. And then I'll give diversification. It does not require much capital when you're investing. But also, we should also remember that in the markets, there is also factors that affect the equities markets, right? When you're investing in the markets, it's not always bullish all the time. There's micro, like if you see what is happening now, the war that is happening, these factors, even in the US market, all these factors affect the market. Gaza now, nobody's investing there currently. Okay, somebody has given me the data year to date. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I know. And you notice that there are different factors that affect the market, even company specific. When a company is not doing well, and there's no projection of where the company is going to, that's when you know some shareholders lose interest. So there are certain factors that affect the market. We also have what they call the UC Invest. It's more like a credit facility for clients who do not have sufficient funds. We give loans, but you must have more shares. It's sort of like a 50. I call it like an asset-backed kind of facility. Yeah, like, and let's say you have the value of the shares is worth 2 million. You can take another as a loan. Yes, but the thing with this is, you know how they say that is exactly what it is. It's like what you have, you take loan, and sometimes it meant like with the returns of the market, some people took those loans, and when they took those loans, they just took those loans to buy a particular company. Example, Waco UCSL started with about, I think, 100 naira plus. As I speak, Waco is 300 naira per share. So imagine somebody taking a loan. Let's say you even had 10 million and then you took 10 million. You made more than 100%. You can actually now, even once your loan matures, you can decide to renew, or you can decide to even pay back your loan. So that's margin trading. The UC Invest facility is actually very, very good for people who also understand the market, for people who want to increase their earnings. Me, I'm never afraid to take those loans, especially understanding how the market works. But you shouldn't always take what you know that you can always return back in case of necessity based on the market volatility. Now, there's also fixed income instruments. As I earlier said, fixed income just represents debt instruments that pays a fixed periodic stream of income to investors. So there are many. There's federal government bonds, there's federal government savings bonds. I know that there's even Treasury bills. And for Treasury bills, it's a short-term instrument that is issued by CBN on behalf of FGN at a discount. And the tenures are 91, 182, 364. You can decide to take your money up front or you take it back in for fixed income. There's also federal government savings bonds. Federal government savings bonds is an instrument that is used by government to borrow money from retail investors. The minimum is 5,000. The maximum is 50 million. How does it work? Say you invested 10 million. Every month they come up with a new auction. There's a new auction of that bond. Say it was 14%. That's technically, if you're doing 14% and you invested 10 million, right? How it works is that's 14% on 10 million. I think that's about 1.4, right? About 1.4. If they pay you, if you divide it by 4, the government pays you your interest quarterly. At the end of 2 years or 3 years, your money is returned back to your account. People do this so that they can get different returns. There's so many products. We also have, for people who are looking to track their share, they bought shares a long time ago, we have our U-Trace that actually help people, we can run a growth search in terms of share consolidation. If you're looking to track your shares, but if you have an inter-member shares in other houses and you want to consolidate it into one, we provide you with all those services for that. So then, which is our sister company, we have our asset management company, and under that, there's so many opportunities for both short-term, both US investment. We have money market funds. Now, money market funds, what it basically does is invest in low risk. No, it's not. Yeah, it's not in this, but it's just in a summary. I'm just giving a summary because I know we're running out of time and there's going to be a lot of questions. So, there's a money market funds which invest in low risk instruments such as Treasury bills and other short fixed income securities. And I think for the returns, the last returns is about 15. The return changes every day. So money market fund is one of those instruments that I always recommend anybody to invest, because at some point your gains are reinvested in your capital. So I call it the miracle of compounding instrument, and the risk is very low. Unlike securities, stock, you can buy a stock now and the value will go down. That's the truth. You can buy a stock now and you can actually lose some part of your capital for short term, and that's why they say when we're looking at the risk, they said the volatility risk, the mitigant for volatility risk is that you go long, which is long term. Have long term in mind. There are so many products. There's stable income funds that invest in diversified portfolio of money markets, fixed income instruments. There's even the UCAP global fixed income funds that invest in dollar denominated securities. I think the year-to-date return has been about well, this is from the previous data, but not as at this week, was about 8%, right? There's also the Eurobonds funds, where I always say it's always good to invest in different asset class. Then for people who don't have energy, you know, there are people who do not have energy to buy single stocks, right? Now there's what they call the UCAP. We have the UCAP equity fund, and it actually invests in portfolio of quoted equities on the stock exchange. Basically, what they do is managed by a fund manager that invests in mostly the top 30 capitalized stocks in the market. Especially is the minimum for that is also 10,000, and the year-to-date return is 47%. So you can see that even putting it in, you know, those funds are also very good. There's a balanced funds that also has a mix. I think is also about 60% is in equities, or then 40% is in fixed income. So there's also the Wealth for Women fund. There are different, there's even UCAP children investment funds. All these are all instruments that are very open to for anyone to invest. Like I said, for fixed income, there's treasury bills, there's FGN savings bonds, there's FGM bonds, there's mutual funds, there's money market, there's stock, there's dollar investment, which is good. But you know, most times when we go to speak to people, especially with the NYC.
Shola Dedemi, please, can you mute your mic? Thank you.
Thank you very much. When we go to speak, most times when we speak to young people, I ask them, what do you invest? They say cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, which is not bad, right? And it's the truth. And I had my friend call me, I have lost so much money for the past 2 years. Since last year, Bitcoin has been bad, cryptocurrency has been bad. You can invest that. I remember I was asking someone, and I asked him, I said, so how did you make this much money? And why are you investing in other alternative assets, which is what I call these ones anyway? He said to me, Debbie, focus on the products you know first. Make money from those products. Then you can decide to invest in other alternative assets. He said, even as I try, I don't put so much in those assets. I invest in the traditional instruments I know. It's that simple. It works. So many people have lost their money from investing in different things. Ajo online, this, that. These products are highly regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. What that means is that even for shares, if a company is no longer existing, your shares are domiciled with the Central Security Clearing System. Yeah, we can. Yeah, Victoria, please share my contacts. Yeah, and Victoria's contact as well. Your shares are domiciled with the Central Security Clearing System. You should always want to know any company you're investing. Please, is your company regulated by SEC or whatever regulation? Then you go to the website and check. You know, because for companies that, like with stocks now, for companies that are no longer existing, all you need to do is move it into another house. You've not lost your shares. You provide the documents and move it. All these are important. I want to urge every one of us, because today we cannot necessarily have the answers to everything one at a time, right? But at least this is just a starter for all of us to think about investment. Invest in safe instruments. I'd rather sit down and get 10%. I know that I am getting it in annuity than look for something that will give me 50% and I lose all my money. But even equities is giving very good returns. So please, I urge everyone that the decision we make now, we may not see it. We may not see the benefit of it, but we don't know. There's always, I wouldn't call it a rainy day, but that is it. That is the truth about life. Something can happen to anybody, but as women, we need to be equipped into making money, into growing our wealth, into building, and that creates independence for us. So thank you very much. I think this is just a summary, and I'm just going to head to questions and, see how we can answer them.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So there's a question from Chibuzo Immaculata. I'm sorry, I hope I don't just butcher your name.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. How can one get the CHN?
All right. Thank you so much, Yusra. Thank you. Thank you so much to our wonderful speaker, Ms. Dabuka, for that insightful and thought-provoking session. I believe you are joined today with questions about money, savings, and wealth creation, right? And you actually helped us do that. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello,
we can
can you
hear
hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hi, Dabuta. I think you should just go on with the questions so we can make efficient use of time.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay, so someone is asking, how can one get the CHN and CSS number in order to buy stocks? I signed up recently on an app, and after I funded, I couldn't buy. I kept getting errors and feedback, and was told it's because of CSS number. How do we do that? Okay, so it's a KYC. You need to, I don't know what app you use, but any app when you're trying to create a brokerage, you need to go through a stockbroking house, not an app. Well, I don't know. It could be, you could have used a stockbroking house, but I'm not too sure. But you need to fill a KYC. For individual, you must have your utility ID card not older than 3 months, because you know with stocks it's a tier 3 account, so it's highly regulated. All that, when you provide it, you submit it to us, or you use the web link. We also have an app. Victoria will put all those details and there. Once you do that, we create the account for you, and then we give you a CSCS and CHN, and we give you your login details to be able to log into our web platform, fund, send money to us, and then you can buy shares. It's just very easy. Yeah. And then the second question is, how do we know when and which shares to buy? So like I had earlier mentioned, there's no when to buy a shares. When you have money and you want to invest, you invest. Which shares to buy is the job of the broker. We have stock recommendations on a weekly basis. And then we have advisors. We send you stock recommendations. Okay, you can buy Zenith. This is where we think Zenith will go. This is where we think GTCO will go. That's it. That's basically it. We guide you. There are stock recommendations on what to buy. Okay. So somebody said there has been a lot of noise. I hope I answered the question to open an account and buy.
Chibuzo.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
All right. There's been a lot of noise around it, and sometimes it can be harder to filter out what's real or if it's just talking about it are paid off by influencers. Please, can you give your opinion on Dangote refinery? Okay. First and foremost, the refinery is an IPO, which is a company, an initial public offering. It is a company that is not open to the public, that wants to go public. That is an IPO. There's no, it's of course, remember when MTN had this IPO, right? And everybody wanted to buy. There's always a hype. Even in America now, there's a hype about SpaceX because, what's his name again? Why am I forgetting his name?
Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon Musk. He wants to list SpaceX, and there's so much pause. He's listing it next year. So Dangote Refinery, I think the company valuation is about $50 billion. What Dangote wants to do is list 10% of his company to the public, and he's even saying that he's going to list in 4 African countries, and he's going to list in Nigeria. He might also list in London. It is simple. If you want to invest in it, it's a viable business. Refinery, there's a lot of money, right? The company, we don't know the financials, but we know the valuation from what Dangote has said. The company is not so public for us to get all the details, but yes, the company is valued about $50 billion, and I think it's just 10% that he's listing. And the listing is in September. When there's an IPO, there's always a hype. When there was public offer, there was hype. But it's not a fake hype. It's that the company in itself is listing in September. All you need to do is open an account. IPOs are so easy. You open an account, you must have a CSCS and CHN number, like what I had spoken to the other question. Once you have a CSCS and CSS number, you can buy your IPO. When it comes out, it's not like you're buying from the market. It's not in the secondary market. It's a primary market where there's a form for you to fill, indicate your interest. There will be a link from our organization. We're just going to have a link. You click on the link, fund how much you want to fill, put your CSCS, put your CHN. The submission is done the same day. There's a deadline, and we submit it to the registrars. Anybody in Nigeria that is collating the list, the submission is done one day. When they submit, they'll hype about it. I suspect that there might be an oversubscription. Bear in mind that even if you want to buy 50 million worth of shares that is just newly listed, they might not give you all. Sometimes if it's oversubscribed, if everybody wants to buy it, they will just maybe give you 80% and return back 20% of your money. So, but there's still going to be an opportunity to buy, because after the IPO, the stock will now come and be traded in the markets. Then companies they now start sharing results, their performance, what they've done this Q1, the monies they've made. Of course, refinery business is a lot of money, so it's a viable business. It is good to invest in it, but I wouldn't say all your money that you want to invest, you should put everything in the refinery. No, you should look at other sectors as well and just invest. Yeah, so that's my recommendation for it.
Okay, I guess that was the last question. Do we have any
No,
more
it's
questions?
not. There are more questions. There are more questions.
There are more questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So somebody said, are shares transferable? Yeah. Shares are transferable, yes. So that I need to understand your transferable. If you have it in another brokerage firm, you can transfer it, right? You can transfer it to any other brokerage firm. Now, if you have a share and you want to cross to another person, right? That's another way to transfer your shares. The person must have an account in the same house. You can decide to cross your shares to somebody, but there are charges. You will pay for those charges. You know, in the market, when you sell and you buy, there are charges from both ends. There's regulatory charges, there's CSS charge, roughly about 1.4% on anything you buy and about 1.8% on anything you sell, because the regulators need to make money. That's how we also make money from brokerage fee. Yeah. Somebody now said, when I buy shares, how long will it take before I start getting dividends? So for some companies, especially the banks, the top banks pay dividends twice every year. Now, in the stock market, they release results quarterly. So for Q1, in April and May, people were already releasing how they've performed for the first quarter. That's why banks were releasing their results. There's Q2, which ends in June, but you start seeing results by July. Now, for full year, which is the last quarter, you start seeing the results in January, February. Then they start announcing how much they made and the profit they share. So ideally, most of the banks always pay dividends in Q2. Most companies always pay dividends. Some companies pay in February, March. There's a dividend calendar. Sometimes they change these calendars. It depends on how much they made when they release their results. Some companies might even delay on their results. So every year, just be rest assured at the beginning of the year, you will see companies that release their result. They will tell you, we are paying banks mostly pay in April and May. That's the truth. So if you buy your shares and hold it, you will be entitled to the dividend. There's always a qualification date. So when a company announces dividends, some people still buy that period. They will tell you that there's a closure of the register. There's a qualification date that you qualify for that dividend. I know. So someone said, there are some shares I bought, but I can't remember the names. And for some people I bought with are receiving dividends directly to their account. Please, how do I go about this? So that means you bought the shares as a certificate format a long time ago. The first thing you need to do, which my colleague Victoria would also, guide you, is a global search. Global search will show where your shares are, what they have. If you want us to process it, then we open an account for you. And once we process it, we take it to the registrars. The registrars, there's a form to fill. You will provide a banker's confirmation. There are certain things you will provide that will now make the registrars credit the shares into your account, and also fill e-dividend form. Some people will go to the registrars themselves. There are many registrars. There's Veritas, there's African Prudential, there's Datamax. Datamax handles GTCO, Veritas handles Zenith. So different registrars handle different companies, and they're the ones that are responsible for paying those dividends and crediting shares. Okay. Mary Trade. Mary Trade is a brokerage firm. You can contact Mary Trade, yeah, if you had opened an account with them. Okay, somebody said, can we have this kind of conversation in the community from time to time? Okay, let me see. Okay, Victoria has sent all the details. So I think that's all the questions we have so far. Thank you all.